Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hi Miss Farah, and for those who watch the video. Okay, my name is Nor Patricia Izati and my group members name is Haifa Zakaria, Ainan Afika, Adam Wafiq, Adam Zekri, and lastly Rabil. Okay, so we want to present about the introduction to safety and health assessment. So we chose woodworking industry and our company names are SC Wooden Products Manufacturing. Or it is known as Syarikat Perniagaan Sea Change, which started in 1974. They has grown from a cottage industry enterprise to a full-fledged modern manufacturing company with more than 500,000 square feet of built-up factory and warehouse space. SC Wooden are both a producer in Malaysia and also a foreign supplier of wooden items and wooden packaging service. They produce different types of wooden products that comply with the domestic and international shipping requirements of ISO, International Organization for Standardizations, and ISPM 15, International Standards for Phytosanitary Measures. Okay. They have in-house heat treating chamber that utilize the kiln drying technique. So because of that, they are capable to make all kind of ISPM 15 certified products such as wooden pallets and others. Okay, so now we continue. They also concentrating on some of the products using environmentally friendly timber acacia mangum wood because of WHO mentioned that they need to use acacia mangum wood because they have fast growing and also environmentally friendly to human and animal. Okay. They also got certificate from AJA EQS certification and Sendirian Berhad, Department of Agriculture and others. So because of their certification, uh, this certification are for their ISO certification, heat treatment certification, SC trademark, and QMQP quality policy. So they are very famous in Malaysia and very good company for wood company. Okay. Then SC wooden items are produced from timber from a certified forest and industrial forest where trees are harvested for planting and have natural growing. So because of this, they are very uh, capable to make wooden plate or wooden project in and apa produce to many country. Okay, that's all from me and I pass to my friends names Adam Wafiq. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi, my name is Adam Firoshi. I'm DEMO student SEM 3. I would like to represent to all of you our group presentation about woodworking industry. This is my presentation about the objective of the report. There is 5 main objectives of the report that we use in our report for woodworking industry. The first main objective is to show the basic way of risk assessment plan which were created by safety and health officer to the worker in woodworking industry. There is a lot of type of risk assessment plan that can be used by all safety and health officer to prevent the risk of injury, accident, incident to the worker in woodworking industry. Every risk assessment plan which were created by safety and health officer must provide as a safety instruction plan to the worker in woodworking industry. The second point is to identify the hazard in woodworking industry. Every task and activity in woodworking industry has its own dangerous hazard that need to be identified by all safety and health officer. In woodworking industry, there is a lot of hazard of hazard that need to provide and need to identify by safety and health officer to prevent it from worker in woodworking industry. Every solution must be every hazard in woodworking industry must provide one solution for every each of the hazard that has been identified in woodworking industry. The third point is to find a solution for every each of the hazard that has been identified by safety and health officer in this woodworking industry. Every safety and health officer required to prepare one solution for every each of the hazard that has been identified in woodworking industry. Every solution and point that showed by safety and health officer is the main prevention point to the hazard and be a guideline to the worker in woodworking industry. The fourth point is to reduce the cost of any expensive and unnecessary equipment in woodworking industry. Every employer needs to find a good solution and idea how to reduce their costs in daily tasks for their safety and health and their financial costs in woodworking industry. The final one is to improve the quality of work in every employee in woodworking industry. To improve employees' working quality, the employer and safety officer need to provide one training and program to the worker to make sure they are ready to work in this industry. Every program that provided by safety and health officer and the employers itself must follow the guideline that given by safety and health department and the government for safety and health costs. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Ainul Afika Minta Azman. Today I will talk about job tasks. So one example of job task from wood industry is workers use machine in woodworking. As we know, machines used in woodworking are dangerous, especially when used improperly or without proper safeguard. It is because the worker is exposed to the risk of any type of hazard which can give effect in their lives such as injuries and can cause deaths. The principal hazard of woodworking can be classified as either safety or health hazard. Employers should train employees on how to identify all types of hazards related to their assigned job task. So, from this job task, we can know what is the safety and health hazard that can harm the worker. Before that, what is safety hazard? Safety hazards are unsafe working conditions that can cause injury, illness, and deaths. The primary safety hazard of working machinery include machine hazard. Machine hazard, which caused by unguard of part of the machine or non-sharp wood cutting place. Because of that, the force exerted on a piece of wood in the process of cutting, which done by the responsible worker, can cause injury or knock off balance due to the force used. Besides that, it can give risk due to the machine which moving without warning or moving unpredictably as the worker can accidentally touch the rotating blades, especially if they use their own hand to put the wood without using a jig or push stick. The second safety hazard is electrical hazard, which caused by fire from faulty electrical equipment or installation, as it can give effects such as electric shock and burn from contact with the live part of the machine, such as fuse, cable, plug, and more, where it must be checked before use to avoid from any accident. The other factors such as ignition of fire or explosion due to electrical contact with potentially flammable or explosive materials, inadequate wiring, damaged wire insulation, which cause the electrical conductor to make contact with each other or with workers' bodies and more. The third safety hazard is fire and explosion hazard, which caused by large quantity of fuel in the form of wood product. So dust and flammable materials such as paint, oil finishes, adhesive, solvent, and liquid propane for internal combustion engines. The condition that cause fire and explosion by dust such as dust suspended in air, small dust particles, enough oxygen to cause explosion, the dust cloud enclosed or partially enclosed space to create pressure effect and more. And the last safety hazard is tool projection. Some woodworking equipment has rotating cutter head with multiple knives. Cutter heads which are not properly adjusted, poorly mounted or have broken knife can become unbalanced. It is important to secure the safety of knife because it used to a cutter head which moving rapidly. An unbalanced cutter head can fling the knife from the tool to the operator or other nearby, which can cause severely or fatally injuries.
Assalamualaikum and a very good morning to Miss Farah and to all my friends. Today, I'll be explaining on the detailed explanation about risk assessment. With the risk assessment process, users take a look on their organization to identify processes and situations that may cause harm, particularly to people, determine how likely is it that each hazard will occur and how severe the consequences would be. And finally, it is to decide what steps the organization can take to stop these hazards from occurring or to control the risk. It's important to note the difference between hazard and risk. A hazard is anything that can cause harm, including work accidents, emergency situation, toxic chemicals, employee conflicts, stress, and many more. A risk, on the other hand, is the chance that a hazard will cause harm. As part of your risk assessment plan, you will identify hazards but then calculate the risk or likelihood of the hazard occurring. The goal of a risk assessment plan will vary across industries, but overall, the goal is to help organizations to prepare for a combat risk. Other goals include providing an analysis of possible threats, preventing injuries or illness, meeting legal requirements, creating awareness about hazard and risk, creating an accurate inventory of available assets, justifying the cost of managing risk, determining the budget of remediate risk, and understanding the return on investment. The steps used in risk assessment form an integral part of your organization's health and safety management plan and ensure that your organization is prepared to handle any risk. Thus, these are the 5 steps in risk assessment process. Before you start the risk management process, you should determine the scope of the assessment, necessary resources, stakeholders involved, and laws and regulations that you'll need to follow. Then, proceed with these 5 steps. The first step of creating your risk assessment plan is determining what hazard your employees and your businesses face, including natural disaster, biological hazards, workplace accidents, international acts, technology hazards, chemical hazards, mental hazards, as well as interruption in the supply chain. Take a look around all your workplace and see what processes or activities could potentially harm your organization. Include all aspects of work, including remote workers and non-routine activities such as repair and maintenance. You should also look at the accident reports to determine what hazard has impacted your company in the past. Second step that you need to do is to determine who might be harmed and how. As you look around your organization, think about how your employees could be harmed by business activities or external factors. For every hazard that you identify in step 1, think about who will be harmed should the hazard take place. The step that you should follow is to evaluate the risk and take precautions. Now that you have gathered a list of potential hazards, you need to consider how likely is it that the hazard will occur and how severe the consequences will be if the hazard occurs. This evaluation will help you determine where you should reduce the level of risk and which hazard you should prioritize first. Fourth step that you should do is to record all of your findings. If you have more than 5 employees in your office, you are required by law to write down your risk assessment process. Your plan should indicate the hazard you have found, the people they affected, and how you plan to mitigate them. The record or the risk assessment plan should show that you have already conducted a proper check on your workplace, determined who would be affected, controlled and dealt with obvious hazards, initiated precautions to keep risk low, as well as to keep your staff involved in the process. And the final step that you should be doing is to review your assessment and update anything if necessary. Your workplace is always changing, so the risk of your organization change as well. A new equipment, processes, and people are introduced, each bring the risk of a new hazard. Continually review and update your risk assessment process to stay on top of these new hazards. Even though you need to be aware of the risks facing your organization, you shouldn't try to fix all of them at once. Risk mitigation can get expensive and can stretch your resources. Instead, you should prioritize risk to focus your time and effort on preventing the most important hazard. To help you prioritize your risk, create a risk assessment chart. Assessment chart is based on the principle that a risk has two primary dimensions, probability and impact, each represented on one axis of the chart. You can use these two measures to plot risks on the chart, which allows you to determine priority and resource allocation. Thus, by applying the risk assessment stats mentioned before, you can manage any potential risk to your businesses. Get prepared with your risk assessment plan, take the time to look for hazards facing your businesses and figure out how to manage them. That's all by me. Thank you.
So next we move to health hazard. What is health hazard? Health hazards are associated with exposure to certain substances, excessive noise, or vibration. Certain types of wood dust, for example, can cause allergic reaction. Health hazard can cause both immediate acute or long-term chronic health effects. The primary health hazard from woodworking include: the first is noise hazard. What is noise hazard? Noise hazard is the loud noise at work, can cause hearing damage as well as causing other risks such as difficulties with communication and not be able to hear warning signal or approaching plant or machinery. Noise levels can vary widely between machines depending on their use and their type of machine, such as beam panel saws and sanding machine, band resolve panels and vertical spindle motors, and more. It is important to identify which machine that worker should use proper personal protective equipment in order to prevent from hearing loss due to keep listen to the noise. So the last health hazard is vibration. This hazard can cause hand-arm vibration syndrome due to the prolonged exposure to vibration from handheld power tools using any machine in woodworking, which can damage blood vessels, nerve, muscle, and tendons. This syndrome may affect for the entire hand. Early signs of this syndrome are a frequent feeling of numbness or tingling in the fingers, hands, arms, or numbness and whiteness in the tip of the finger when exposed to cold. As the disease progresses, workers experience more frequent attacks of numbness, tingling, and pain, and find it difficult to use their hands. Workers with this syndrome may be disabled for a long time.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Haifa binti Zakaria. Today I would like to present about risk matrix for wood factory. Our life can be full of risks that can cause harm to ourselves. Therefore, at the work factory, the worker had to face various risks and hazards that can that can endanger their life mentally and physically. Thus, with the help of the risk matrix, the SHO officer can identify the risks and hazards. The table consists with likelihood and the severity of the outcome of the accident at the workplace. By the data given, an immediate yet appropriate action to prevent the accident from happening will be done. Wisdom is known as the situation of how likely someone to expose to awful circumstances or accident. Hence, the consequences is the severity of the outcome of the accident to the people. At the table A, we can see there is a likelihood table. There is 5 types of likelihood. The first and the most likely accident to happen is rating number 5. The second is possible. The third is conceivable. The fourth is remote, and the least situation to be likely to be happen is inconceivable. As for the severity types of the outcome for the person is catastrophic, the severe one, and the highest rating. Number 2 is fatal, 3 is serious, 4 is minor, and number 5 is negligible. The least and which can cause almost no harm to the person. As we can see over here, to get the risk level of certain incident by referring the value of the likelihood and severity from the table provided to find the risk level, we must multiply the likelihood and the severity data to find the actual risk level for certain accident that happen at the workplace. As we can see, the high level are marked with red color, which must require an immediate action to control the hazard as detailed in the hierarchy of control. For the medium one that was marked in yellow color, we must have a planned approach to control the hazard by apply temporary measure if required. For the least and which was marked with green color are risks that identify low and may be considered as acceptable and further reduction may not be necessary. As we can see over here is the scenario of safety hazard that happened at the work factory. There is 4 types of hazard. The first one is machine hazard. An example of accident is broken machine that can cause an injured as for the previous slide that I have been told you, for the safety hazard, there's 4 types, which is machine hazard. For example, broken machine can cause injured worker whether bad or not. So, the likelihood is possibly is rating for 4 points, and for the severity is 3. If we multiply the points, we will get medium risk, which is 12. As for the second part, is electrical hazard. An example of accident is electric shock can cause death if the worker is exposed to electricity. So the possibility is 4 times by 4 for that, which cause high risk 16. For the third point is fire and explosion hazard. An example of accident is explosion near workplace are fatal. Unexpected, rating for 1, and catastrophic rating for 5, which cause medium risk 5, 5 points. And the last hazard is tool projection. An example of accident is a worker was injured by a wood cutting knife, which an injuries can lead to death or not. So the likelihood of the accident can occur is 3 expected and 4 death for the severity. So if we multiply all the points, we got the medium risk, which is 12 points. For the next slide is the health hazard. There are 2 types of health hazard: noise hazard and vibration hazard. An example of accident is for the hearing loss. Under noise hazard, hearing loss can cause after hearing loss can happen after an exposure to noise for a long time, which can lead to permanent hearing loss if too severe. So the most likely the accident can occur is 5, and the severity of the accident is 3. If we multiply the points, we get 15. It falls under the high risk level. For the vibration, the worker will have a hand-arm vibration syndrome. If it was too severe, it can be lead to permanent disability, which fall under most likely accident to happen, which is 5, and the severity fall under 3. So if we multiply all the points, we got 15, and it's fall under high risk. So based on the risk metric table above, we can summarize that the worker are likely to occur a high risk situation on their workplace rather than a low risk or medium risk. That's all for me. Thank you, and I will pass to the next presenter, which is Ravi.
Hello everyone, and today I would like to present about hierarchy of control. So what is hierarchy of control? Hierarchy of control is basically the tier or hierarchy of each control measures. So there are 5 control measures total, which are elimination, substitution, engineering, administrative, and PPE. I'll go one by one what the meaning of both of all the control measures. Elimination means basically to make eliminate the hazard or make the hazard have 0 risk towards any workers or the product. Next is substitution. Substitution basically using an alternative product to replace the hazardous object that is present in the workplace. This is mostly used in chemical to use another chemical substitute because that original chemical was highly dangerous. Next is engineering control. Engineering control is basically the act of modifying or adding equipment or machinery that can help help reduce the risk. For example, add implementation of vents or guardrails. And next is administrative control. Administrative control is when the administration of the company and the workers act together to find to reduce the risk, reduce the hazard that is in the workplace. For example, maintaining proper housekeeping, having all the workers properly trained, giving them training procedures, such things like that. And last but not least, PPE, which is personal protective equipment. This is the last tier, as it was only used in last, should be employed in lastly, because it does not make the hazard risk of injury from the hazard zero or reduce it. It only protects the workers, so it does not go after the hazard itself. So next slide, please. So we have hierarchy table. So from our studies of the workplace, we have found many hazard that is in place in the workplace. For example, in the act of wood cutting, one of the work activity in the company, there are several hazards present in the act of wood cutting, which are no guardrail present during the cutting of machines, the risk of the risk of electrocution through faulty wiring in the machines, in the control panels, especially the sawdust particle because of the cutting of the wood. This can lead to respiratory problems and can cause explosion in the workplace. And also there's flying debris that or flying wood chips that can be discharged from the act of cutting wood. There are also from the machine itself, there's also hazard of noise or prolonged exposure to noise. This can lead to hearing impairment in the workers. Also, one of hazard we found also is when worker use cutting machines, handheld cutting machines like saws, jigsaws. This has an ergonomic hazard to the workers through repetitive motion and vibration. This can cause the impairment in workers' hands, can lead to carpal tunnels in some cases. So as you can see on this all the control measure that is control. Mostly for wood cutting machine, we have employed engineering, administrative, and PPE should be provided. So for example, engineering, when during the cutting of machines, wood debris will fly off. So we should install see-through glass to make sure the workers does not get hit by the flying wood. Another thing with the faulty electrical panel, we should have engineering control look at it and administrative control to make sure all the equipment are well maintained. That's it for my part. Yeah.
So in conclusion, Based on the information, we can know what type of safety and health hazard which can give harm to the workers, whether the risk is less or instead. In order to prevent the risk or to minimize the risk that may cause long effect to the worker or can cause deaths, control measures are the best method to practice by the worker, which are elimination control, substitution control, engineering control, administration control, and personal protective equipment. It is important to identify the hazard at workplace in order to maintain employee safety based on the risk assessment. So that's all from us. Thank you for watching.